Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the History of Video Games. My name is Wes, and I am here with Ben. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing great. How are you, Wes?
I am doing pretty dang good myself. Yeah.
I'm feeling good. Research is done. It's like this giant weight lifted off my shoulder. It's like, what am I going to do next weekend? You know, I could do anything.
The world is your oyster now that we have finally conquered 78, which, oh my god, that was a lot of research.
I know there were so many computer games. I feel like we're kind of like ready to go for next year though, because we discovered some new sources, which I think will be helpful.
Yes, yeah, a lot of databases.
It was definitely a rougher one.
But yeah, do you want to get us started off today with what you've been playing recently?
Should I? Because mine's like not happy stuff.
Well, because then I can say the happy stuff after.
Okay. Well, I have to talk about WoW because the Shadowlands pre-patch hit, which is the next expansion. And basically what they do is anything that's like not actual content for the expansion, they give to players early. So like the rebalancing of all the classes and things that affected the world outside of like the new zones, right? So all that's hit, and it's basically been so bad that I stopped playing WoW. So
yikes.
I know. I mean, you know how I was playing with a group of friends and we were making it a challenge and we were doing these dungeons at lower level and doing them with 3 people instead of 5. And that was just super fun. It was like the reason I was still playing. And they basically just took that away. So one of the main reasons something like that is challenging is because we would go in under leveled, which I think probably on average we were maybe 5 levels below the levels of the bosses.
Right.
And that made it fun. That was like a good challenging area for us. But what they did was they made it so you can't enter the dungeon until you're the same level as everything in the dungeon. So you cannot go in under leveled, which means that it's a joke. Like with 3 people, we killed the bosses in less than a minute. And keep in mind, this is supposedly tuned for 5 people, but with 3 people, we could kill the bosses in less than a minute, and the healer didn't even need to heal me.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's like complete waste of time. I might go back and try to solo them, I guess, but there's so many mechanics that I wanted to see that you just can't see it with one person. You know, maybe like somebody turns on the other team members or something like that, you know, but with one person, it's like, that's not going to happen. I mean, maybe I'll be like a hunter and take a pet or something, and then that can turn on me, but I don't know. It just seems completely stupid. And beyond that, the actual leveling of the world is incredibly worse as well. So they had the level squish happen. So they basically rebalanced the whole game. And they made it so instead of, for example, previously each expansion had about 10 levels worth of content, right? So when you were level 60, you would go to one expansion. When you're level 70, you would go to another expansion.
Right.
You got to kind of experience all the content. But now they're making it so that the amount of time it takes for you to level up all happens in one expansion. So
that's so strange to me.
Yeah, and then after you're like max level, all the other content does not level up with you forever. So you're just going to go around one-shotting the rest of the game, which is like every piece of content except for the one expansion that you actually leveled up in. It's so weird, and I've seen mixed things on it too, which is super strange to me because I'm so like against it. And some people were like, well, it took me 10 hours to get to the max level now. It's like so much easier, and that makes it so much more accessible. I'm like, I don't know. Like, maybe, but you could have just like boosted the character to 120 or whatever before, so I don't really understand it at all.
Yeah, I guess there's probably more than 2 different, types of ways to play it when you're looking at it that way. But I can understand where other people are coming from, because if you're someone who buys the game for the new content and doesn't have like an ongoing account, there's a lot of time investment to be able to say like fully enjoy end game Shadowlands or whatever.
Yeah.
But it still seems like, I mean, how game breaking would it be for it to be an opt-in thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like somebody who's a just fan of WoW, new content's exciting, but not the main driver. you want them to be able to have fun with the base content still too. But now it's just like choose your own adventure, play one of the expansions to get to end game. I
Right.
don't know. I can definitely see the other side of it, but it's got to be so frustrating if that's not why you enjoy the game for end game content.
Yeah. It's super strange, and it doesn't really make any sense, like the restrictions on things. They could make it so that every zone is always like matching your level, so you're never one-shotting things, right? But it's like, no. After you do that one expansion and you go anywhere else, you're gonna be one-shotting that stuff. It's like, but why? And it's also super weird to know that like some of the toughest dungeons in the game, I can go in and do it at level 10 now because I started at that expansion, and it's like de-leveled to like 10. It's like, it's really strange to me. It doesn't feel right.
Right. Yeah. And I forget if you mentioned it this way at the beginning when you started talking, but it's basically, it's not like you have to reach a certain level to do that dungeon. It's like every dungeon de-levels to your current level, right?
Well, there's a minimum level entry, but you can't like go in earlier. And the minimum level entry is the exact same level as the monsters in that dungeon. So they're
I
always your
gotcha.
level.
So you're always the same level or overpowered anyway.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense that like, can't they just make the dungeons like tuned for 5 people? Like, because that way maybe going in with 3 people would be fun, but it's obviously tuned. I don't know what they're thinking, to be honest. And there's been so much negativity around the expansion too. Like all the main streamers, like obviously they're gonna play it and they're gonna have fun, find fun things to do. But there's like a very specific, history of Blizzard just like not listening to feedback. And you're like, how much longer are we gonna do this? It's like all the reasons why I quit in the first time.
Right. Well, you knew it would come back eventually. Here it is with Shadowlands, possibly a reason to quit it for good.
Yeah, we'll see. It might be a fun thing to do every now and then, especially if my brother's still playing, but I've kind of lost interest. So that's that's my WoW news. It might be the end.
Yeah.
Who
Well,
knows?
had a good run, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think I got to talk about what I've been doing recently,
Yes, please.
which is maybe also controversial because there's controversy around Genshin Impact still. And what I wanted to talk about is how it limits your daily playtime. Because
Okay.
I know you were reading an article about this, and I haven't read too much about it, but I know I've seen people in streams talking to streamers about it, how there's a pretty restrictive limit on how much you can play during a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I really disagree that it's that restrictive. But it all sort of depends on how much you're playing the game. Basically, you have 120 of this one currency, which is basically like energy in any other kind of free to play game.
Mm-hmm.
And you consume that for certain types of rewards from bosses you fight. But the weird thing is with this one, part of the reason I don't mind it so much is that if you wanted to just do fights for the fun of it, but get no rewards, which granted does get pretty old pretty fast, you can still do almost all of the fights. You just can't claim the rewards without that energy.
Mm.
So it's still like an option for gameplay there. And after you run out of this 120 cap of the energy, one refreshes every 8 minutes. So it's kind of been like a play once every 24 hours thing for me to use that specific resource. But the other issue I have with the complaints over it is there's still daily quests that you can do, which granted only take about 15-20 minutes. There's still exploration and plenty of resources that don't have any kind of energy cost associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's enemies that drop certain character and weapon upgrade materials, and all of those are just on like a maybe like 10-minute max respawn timer, or some of them might be larger, but the map is so big that you can find multiples of those enemy types and do like a rotation to get through them.
Right.
So it's definitely limiting in some factors that you have to, for like the big bosses to claim the good rewards, use this energy. But also, I think part of it is people are expecting to play it like Breath of the Wild, which it's very similar to, and just dump like 30 hours over a weekend if you want to into it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of taking it from the other side of things where it's this is a free to play game that wants to make money off of me, but also happens to be a good RPG instead of like it's a really good RPG that also happens to make money off of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a free to play game. I mean, maybe if there's a way for you to like skip out on waiting if you want to pay them money, like
There is.
yeah. So I don't really see what the issue is then.
Yeah. And maybe it's a loud minority and it's not a lot of people who have this issue with it. Maybe it is. But to me, it's a game that I like spending a lot of time playing. But at this
Mhm.
point, if I could play it for like 30 to 45 minutes after work and do it daily, I feel like that's a pretty dang good investment for free to play that I think I've put $5 into so far, and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm just still super happy with it. I mean, I'm definitely playing through it slow and getting distracted a lot, but I still haven't finished all of the side quests that are throughout the whole map anyway.
Wow.
And yeah, so I'm not too worried about content just yet. Starting to hit a wall where I might have to do daily grinds to be able to get like the money to upgrade my characters instead of like upgrading every day, which I was kind of doing before. But even so, that's kind of a natural arc or slope that you would expect with the difficulty and the increased level in the game.
Mhm.
Definitely harsher because they want to incentivize you to pay money. But as long as I remember that in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, I can still get whatever value I want out of it for free. And it's pretty good value for free.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time with it. I just hope they fix that camera bug.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So your big issue was the was it the vertical or horizontal camera movement?
The vertical camera movement.
Right. It's much slower than horizontal and there's no way to adjust it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like it just got super annoying for me. I don't know about you. I've got like a pretty small mouse pad, so I can't be like going vertical with like multiple swipes with the mouse too often.
Okay, yeah. Maybe that's part of the reason that I haven't noticed it either, because I have a decent sized or a pretty big mouse pad. So I got used to it for whatever reason, but
Mhm.
there also should just like be an option.
I think they said it was like a known issue, so sooner rather than later, hopefully, and I'll be back in it.
Heck yeah, and then we'll both be talking about Genshin Impact instead of WoW. Those will be the days.
Yeah, the good days. All right, should we move on, Wes? We have a lot of stuff to talk about, and I kind of want to get into it because this is by far my favorite special topic that we ever do. Our favorite games of last year. It's been a long one.
My favorite too, and yeah, it's been the longest year so far. We had the most to comb through, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Let's start with our favorite console of the year. This is a category we added a couple of years ago now. And for me, this is an easy decision, but do you want to start it?
Sure, yeah, I'll definitely start it off. Although I think, as we briefly discussed before recording, this was pretty easy for both of us.
Yeah.
So we're talking 1977. It's pretty understood that the Atari 2600 is like the best thing, or the
Yeah.
best console at least, to come out in 1977. It's second generation. Cartridges are great. The graphics, the sounds, the amount of variations of different
Mm-hmm.
types of games on each cartridge is like crazy good. The one that I reviewed and the one that sticks out to me the most is Combat, which, said it had 27 variations, might have been a little overblown. There were at least like 15 that you could have fun with, though, which is still
Yeah.
really good for one cartridge on a Gen 2 console. So, yeah, for me, it was definitely the Atari 2600. I did say there were some decent Gen 1 consoles too. I really liked that weird Sears Stunt Cycle Ultra Pong mashup console just because it had
Mm-hmm.
so many games and it was such a weird combo. But yeah, definitely the Atari 2600.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It was my favorite console as well. I don't know. It's like just about everything about it was just an upgrade. I mean, more resolution, more colors, more sounds. Like the sounds were better. And the games were, I feel like they didn't need to be as complex with the variations as they were. Like I wasn't expecting to play 30 variations of Air Sea Battle, but it
Right,
was
yeah.
there. And it was like, just like, Atari's like, yeah, this is our quality. And it was just like way high. It's like, oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. So, yeah, for sure, the Atari 2600 for me. There were some, again, as you mentioned, good games from other consoles. I almost picked for one of my favorite games, Robot Chase for the Fairchild. It was a real time version of those chase games, and it was
Oh,
so
that's
good.
right. Yeah.
It's a really good one. And then some of the other first gen ones, like Atari Pinball and the Telstar Arcade with the triangle. I mean, how can I not mention that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But definitely the 2600 was my favorite as well. So, should we move on to the worst games?
Yes, yeah, I think we should. And I'll get us started on this one too, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You know, through 77, I have felt a little bit bad about how much we've hated on the RCA Studio 2,
Yeah.
but I felt like I had to pick Freeway from the RCA Studio 2 for my least favorite game.
Okay.
I know that the console kind of came out rushed and had limited capabilities, so I don't really blame the person who made this game because I think it was a valiant effort. But on this console, it was just incredibly not fun. It's, if you don't remember, it's sort of a speed race type, top down, you're racing vertically type game. Except because of the RCA Studio 2, it's very slow. There's only one opposing car at a time, and it only goes side to side. If you're at top speed and you don't hit anything, there are no sounds playing, and there are only beeps when you hit the other car, basically. And when you do hit the other car, instead of crashing, blinking, and respawning like we're used to, you just slow down the whole game and, like, second by second, frame by frame, work your way through the opposing car as the game beeps and then come out on the other side. It was just really not fun. I looked up some pictures and video of it and I remembered why I didn't like it so much.
Yeah. That's a good choice, Wes, I think.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear what you picked out for it.
Well, this one was really, really hard for me. Do you remember like the two that I thought for sure was going to be one, and then a second one came along, and I was like, oh God, now I have to actually choose.
Oh no, I'm blanking, but that makes the suspense even more interesting.
Yeah. So on one hand, we have Tennis from the RCA Studio 2, which was a version of Pong that was so bad it was almost unplayable.
Yes, I do remember that.
This is in a time when like Pong was like being played pretty well, like years ago on consoles. So I think the title for that episode was like the worst game of all time or whatever. But then another one came along. It was Grand Prix. Now, this was on the PC 504 cartridge, and it used the AY38603 chip. And this one was, again, a speed race style, which that's interesting that both of ours might be speed race ones. But this one, speed race, except it was a whole cartridge for two racing games, and the two games were one player and two player, and the one player only had half of the screen used.
Oh, that's right.
So, yeah, that one was the worst one. I actually was like, no, this is more insulting to me than the RCA Studio 2, which was just a bad console, So, like, the Pong game wasn't worse than the normal games, like they were all pretty
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
But like the PC 50X line, that had the Stunt Cycle games on it. That had 10 Pong games in one chip on it. That had tank games. It's going to have more games that we're going to cover in 78. Like it's capable of doing very nice things. And to have a whole chip dedicated to two racing games and they both sucked. I mean, it's virtually unplayable, Wes. I mean, when you start going up the screen, the more you don't hit stuff, the faster it goes, but it goes to a point where it's impossible to play. You always crash, and when you crash, you start from zero again, and you start up, and then you crash and you start from zero again. There's so many cars coming down the screen with no brakes in them that you never get a second to just like actually play the game. It's just a series of crashes and stopping and starting. And the two-player mode is virtually unplayable because if you think it's bad enough for you to just like keep crashing and starting over, if the person you're racing against crashes, you both start over. So it's like it was just so bad. Like
that's right. I forgot about that.
It amazes me. And that one to me was just it just was like a dagger way more than Pong because or tennis because with tennis I kind of expected it to be bad. This shouldn't have been bad. Like there's no reason it had to be this bad. There's no reason that the
Right.
one player game should have the second track there that's empty right beside you that you can't play in. They just like I don't know what they were thinking. If they were just trying to get a quick sell or what, but man, it was like insultingly bad. You know what I mean? Like that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Like we hate the AY chips now just because we've seen them a lot, but they are generally competent and
Yeah,
capable chips. And this is just
yeah.
like, you did something wrong.
I know. Like the stunt cycle games were like pretty good, right? Like they were pretty good. And to think that this is like the same company with the same hardware, it's like how? Who thought this was a good idea? Yeah, so that's my worst one. But let's get to the best ones now, Wes.
Yeah, the good stuff.
Before we start, do you want to have any guesses for mine?
Well, okay. I know Boot Hill is on there. Ooh.
Okay.
Okay. No response. Good man. Uh, I feel like I should know another one for certain, but that's the one that's popping out to me most.
Okay.
But I'm curious to hear what you got to say about my guesses.
I've got two in mind. I don't know if they're going to be there, but I really hope Gladiator is there. Such a cool one. And I also really hope, well, I don't really hope, but like, I think Missile X is going to be there. That's my guess. So Missile X and Gladiator are my guesses. I don't know what your third one could be.
All right. Well, should I get us started off then?
Sure.
Well, I want to tell you, Ben, the two that did not make the cut, although they were close, were Gladiator and Missile X.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm completely lost now.
Gladiator, honestly, I just remembered like after I rated my top three, and I'm like, oh crap, I love Gladiator, but I think I want to talk about these three.
Okay.
So Gladiator's definitely super good for the Video Brain family computer if you don't remember. But to get started for my number three, I put in Starship One by Atari.
Okay.
I figured, of course, I have to throw a space game on there. You know, I love space
Oh, yeah.
games. And when I saw this, I think I was super excited. And it definitely wasn't like, didn't match that expectation completely, but it's still a pretty dang good first person space game. The way that the stars fly past you and the planets get really big when they go flying on the sides of you is really cool. The ships that are all over the screen, even though they are very obvious Star Trek ripoffs, the models actually look really good too. And it has really unique sounds for the lasers, which also come out of the front of the screen and look really cool as well. And in addition to all those really good visuals, it's got pretty fun gameplay. The sounds are good, and the cabinet was also really intricate and appealing, at least in the area in front of the recessed screen. It had these crazy cardboard cutouts of like the inside of a hangar of a spaceship with like crew members preparing shuttles to launch and everything. And something about just the sleek 70s idea of the future I really liked about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was one I raved about when I reviewed it, but just looking back at it, I was thinking this is a pretty darn cool arcade cabinet of first person flying through space shooting stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
I should have known it was like Space Game was going to be up there. That's my fault.
You got to know by now.
Yeah.
So then what's your third?
Yeah, this one is, I think this one's going to really surprise you, Wes. I had so many options for third place, and I kept going back and forth between a lot. This one, though, it has a charm about it. And you know how I am with some games that maybe the gameplay is not the best, but like it has that charm, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
This one, I picked Drag Race by Key Games. This is one that you reviewed, I think.
Oh
And
yeah, the side view drag
yes,
racing, right? Yes.
for whatever reason, I think about this game pretty often. I think there's something about how good the dragsters look, first of all. I think it's the best looking dragster, bar none, for any game that we've done.
Absolutely.
And the color combination for the background colors are also, I think, really, I don't know, they're very memorable to me, like the red and the yellow about it. I just remember like testing it out before giving it to you and just playing it for longer than I needed to because I I wanted to get the shifting to work right, and I wanted to like whenever you shift, like the whole dragster like revs up like it's doing a wheelie or
Right,
something.
goes on the back tires. Yeah,
It's just a really fun one. I think it has a lot of character, and it's just like a simple, easy game. You know, easy to pick up. I think it would have been way better to actually have a physical console and the steering wheel to use on it than the keyboard. But there's something incredibly memorable about it to me, and ultimately, I thought that's why it should be number three. So yeah, kind of a out of left field one maybe, but I don't know. I just think about it a lot. It's
yeah, yeah,
also was like that first game that really had a like speed running community behind it. So I think it's just kind
yeah.
of like a cool one, like a very just interesting game.
Absolutely. And I did look at that video just today because I was thinking about it. It didn't end up making the cut, but I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But getting on to my number two, I guess, I got Boot Hill by Midway, uh,
Oh,
one that I didn't even take a look at, but I was like, man, I feel like Ben talked about this game a lot. I should watch
yeah.
some videos of it and remind myself what's so great about it. And it's the follow up to Gunfight. I feel like saying that, we're like, oh, shoot, this has a lot to live up to. And I feel like it really did live up to it. I mean, it's got great animations, great graphics on the screen. The funeral march plays whenever your cowboy dies and you turn into a gravestone,
Yeah.
which is hilarious. It's so silly. Even though it's black and white graphics, they make good use of that painted style background to make it still look visually interesting. And it got rid of one of my main complaints about Gunfight, which is that to make the cowboys look detailed, they took up like half the screen in
Mm-hmm.
Gunfight or like a quarter of the screen. And in this, they're actually back to like the normal small size that we saw in Western Gun originally. And it just makes it so much more playable, in my opinion, because it's more chance to miss, more skill to shooting. So, yeah, I was just looking back at it thinking, this is a really good game. It's just shootout cowboy fun. And it's a worthy successor to Gunfight, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Wes, I mean, that was your number two. It was also my number two.
Oh, perfect. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So Gunfight, I mean, you mentioned it, but even more than what you mentioned, it didn't just have like the funeral theme. It had four different musical interludes, one for each player when they died, and then a beginning and an end one. Like that was crazy. Like the shooting sounds were great. They had that perspective thing, which I think was the first time we've ever really seen that. The hand painted background, not only does it look really good, but I believe in our timeline, it's the first game to have a hand painted background. I think Missile X was in that same episode, and that also had a hand painted background, but we
Yeah,
hadn't
yeah.
seen those before then. So it was like, no matter what, it was right on the edge of like that kind of technology. And I was like, wow, there's just so many great improvements. And I feel like we've been kind of waiting and hoping for that sequel for such a long time, and then it actually came, and it actually like surpass expectations. So
Right.
it's just a fun PvP shooting game. Those are going to be some of the best of all time forever. So it's not really any surprise that it's so high on both of our lists, especially when the graphics look good, the gameplay's good, and the sound design's great.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad I guessed one of the ones on your list, although I thought that was going to be your number one.
I know. Now what? I have no clue what your number one is.
Well, I got to tell you, I'll give you my setup now and then go right into it. This one, I don't know if it's the right rating to give it. It just stood out to me and it surprised me so much that I think that's why it's number one, even though it might
Okay.
not, like, on the surface look like the best game. I'm prefacing it because you're going to be like, what? So my
Is
number
it?
one was Circus by Exidy.
Oh, I was just about to guess Canyon Bomber.
I actually really did like Candy Bomber
I
too. There
know
was a
Canyon
lot of
Bomber
good
is
ones
great.
this year. But Circus by Exidy, mainly because I looked at it, I was like, Exidy, okay, sure, Circus. Like, what are you going to do with a breakout type game that has a clown theme? That sounds horrible. But the fact that the breakout type rows, which were balloons in this, moved in opposite directions, the fact that you have to catch clowns on opposite side of the seesaw, so it's not just like bouncing the ball up and down, There's this really nice speed and momentum to the clowns when you throw them up in the air and you have to catch them. And it just makes the game feel like it plays really smoothly. It looks great. The balloons have this really great shape, like they aren't just blocks up there, and they have that little cutout in the space where it's blank, so it looks like it has that typical shine on it, the way that you see like shine drawn on apples.
Mm-hmm.
The clowns wave their arms in the air when they're flying, and they do like this hilarious walk to dive off the side of the screen when like you start over of a new life, and then they land on the seesaw. And on top of that, it has really good sounds too. The bounce is this really weird, hilarious, cartoony, like boing sound. The balloon pop just sounds exactly like a balloon pop. And it does have a little bit of music in it, which I actually forgot about, but it plays the funeral march when one of your clowns doesn't land on the seesaw.
Yeah.
So it was just so weird, yet at the same time, really fun and looked really visually appealing too. So I had to throw it up in my number one.
Yeah. That's one that I saw doing research at like the beginning or at the end of 76, and we waited all year for it to come out, which came out in like December or whatever.
Right.
And it was still good. I was like, "Oh my gosh. So good." It's one of those ones where it's like so out of left field, but then it's like perfectly matches the gameplay, you know?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's a great one. And now for my favorite of the year, Wes, the one that I was looking forward to for a long time. Another one by Key Games. They just know me, I guess. This is Superbug,
Oh, of course.
which
Yeah.
came out in September. Yeah, this is the first game to have a scrolling playfield, and let me tell you what, when you play one of these, you will never look back. I mean, it essentially feels like I think like some of the early Grand Theft Autos were just top down, right? And it could be like that. That was the gameplay. You're driving around in a top down view, but it feels like you've got this massive world. It's never ending and it's random every time. So no play, two plays is the same. This has kind of like roguelike elements a little bit with that. And the fact that it was a scrolling playfield meant it scrolled in any direction. So you could do complete U turns. You could do super zigzags where it's multiple U turns. There were times when the track would split into two and then somehow link up with itself. I was like, how did that happen? And then it used an overlay, but it had these kind of tree bush things along the sides of the road. It was a really first time. I know you felt that in Super Speed Race, but having like real actual things along the track just makes the track feel so much better to play. And the way that those trees spawned into was kind of random patterns, and they were just like everything just felt so great about it. I really think that the gameplay of it was just kind of next generation gameplay. So to me, that's my favorite. And we had a lot of good ones in 77.
We really did.
A lot of stuff that maybe was surprising, and then some stuff that I knew about. Also, compared to 76, I feel like they're just so much farther ahead. It's crazy.
Yeah, looking back at what we did then and seeing like where stuff is now. Although I did realize that somehow my top three games, none of them were in color.
I think that's kind of like a sign of 77. Like they'd use those like hand painted backgrounds and stuff, and animation was like more important, I think,
Yeah,
than
than just having color. And those
yeah.
kind of ended up being the ones we reviewed the best too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a trend of the year. I don't know if we're gonna see that in 78, but if we did, I don't think I'd be too upset either. So but yeah. I think even in last year's, like I'm thinking back on Stunt Cycle, which was one of my favorites last year. Having animation really just makes the characters feel so much more alive, and there's something special about great animation. I think that'll always be the case forever, but yeah. Without further ado, let's hop in to the new year at last. Hello and welcome back to the History of Video Games. We are now in 78, and that means a new round of research has been done. But like always, I'd like to maybe spend a minute, and just in case you guys missed the older episodes or you're just not sure how we do research, kind of go through some of the rules that we live and die by over here and what we decide to include on the list and what we don't. So there's a couple like main things that we look for when we're judging what is a video game and should it be on our list. The first thing is like, is it electromechanical? That was something that was more prevalent in the really early history of video games than it is now, but there's still a fair amount of arcade machines, and even I think this year was the first time ever that I saw electromechanical handhelds that I had to sort through and make decisions on. And it's not necessarily like a hard and fast thing where if it's electromechanical, we're never going to talk about it. Like if there's a good reason to, we might. But for the most part, if there's moving parts in there or sounds are being made physically or something, we're not really going to be including that in the timeline or in the podcast. So electromechanical games are definitely something we steer away from. The other thing is games that we can only find one source for. I think actually this year there wasn't that many of those. We were able to track down most of the sources for things. But if there's only one source, even if it's maybe a trusted source, we generally don't include it because we need more evidence, really. Obviously, if you can find something from like 1978, even if it is just one source, at least it's maybe a more trusted one. So there's leeway there too, just like with anything. But yeah, so that's something. Another thing, no calculator games. This is something that hopefully it's going to go away soon, but they're still very popular in this time, and I've been like removing a lot of them from my research. So yeah, there's a lot of programmable calculator games out there. I think people thought it was just as big as a computer back then, you know, or just as potentially influential, but it's weird. But yeah, we're just going to stay away from calculators as much as we can. Also, no ports of games that we've already covered that have no new features. This one, I think, is a pretty light rule. Like, we're going to cover a lot of tic-tac-toe, even though we've already covered tic-tac-toe, because it might be a little different. But in general, if it's something that's been basically ported over from another system, we don't really care about it at that point. So that's another thing. And something else to help me out with the handhelds, because they were really tripping me up. Any handheld that had physical moving pieces, I did not include. We might talk about them in a special topic for like the plug and play games. But for instance, if you're playing Battleship and you actually have to put down the Battleship pieces with your hands on the board, even if the whole scoring system and stuff is all digital and there's digital sounds and animations, like, you're still putting pieces down with your hands. So I didn't include anything like that. So, but anything else like we can find, we'll put on. And there's quite a lot. I do want to mention, I mentioned this last year too, but I found two sources specifically for Spanish and Japanese first generation Pong consoles. Since I only have the one source for both of them, we're not going to include them on the list. But I do think that they are trustworthy sources, and there will be a link to them on the website if you guys want to check it out, but we're not going to really be in there too much. And I don't think there's anything unique in there either. I think it's just the same chips we've always seen. So I think that's all I have to say. So let's hop into it. We have a couple retcons. It happens every year, so we're going to go through those real fast here for you. And just so you guys know, Wes is going to cover and review a game today, but he's only doing one, and I'm not doing any because we just finished research like an hour ago. So.
Right.
And we've got a lot of honorable mentions here we want to get through so we can get to the good stuff in 1978. So let's hop into it. So a couple retcons. I found this magazine called the Computer Notes magazine, which has been coming out, I think, for a couple of years actually, but it seems to go defunct in 78. So like right when I find it, it's like, oh, it's over now. But I kind of looked through, especially the 77 magazines, to see if there's anything there. It doesn't seem like there's anything that notable. It's mainly stuff like Blackjack, Tic-Tac-Toe, Star Trek, everything we've covered before. Although their Star Trek game did have sound effects, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, I just wanted to mention Computer Notes magazine in case anybody wants to go look it up. I did find scans of it at least until 78. So that's the first one.
And then again, these are some games from Technical Systems Consultants Incorporated that we found that were released in 77. I don't think there were too many that were all that different, but some of the most notable ones were Battleship, Klingon Capture, which sounds like your typical Trek game, Rover, Stock Market, and Space Voyage. But for all of those, we didn't really have any emulation or code, just ads somewhere in the magazine, so we don't really have much to go on.
Yeah. And then that's kind of the same for this next one. This next one did have a full write-up. It's called Apple Star Trek by Bob Bishop. It had a full write-up in the May issue of Interface Age magazine in 1977. But the reason why it wasn't on our list was because that magazine is actually missing from archive.org, where we find a lot of magazines. And I don't think I found it anywhere else, but in doing the research this year, I didn't find the magazine, but I did find pretty good evidence that did come out in that magazine. So it's called Apple Star Trek. There's no code anywhere that I can find. There's no pictures, but I'm pretty positive from my research that it did come out, and it was in that featured in that magazine. But that magazine issue itself is kind of lost, so don't blame me on that one. Moving on from there, we have another journal, another series of magazines that I didn't realize existed called the Small Systems Journal from 1977. And these ones did have some interesting games, although all of them is just code that we can't really run. And I couldn't find any real pictures or emulation or videos of them. So we're just going to honorable mention them quick, at least the main ones. The first one here, it came out in October of 77. It's called Star Wars by Robert Kopedge, I'm going to say. I think the Small Systems Journal was run by a company called Ohio Scientific, which we're going to cover more in depth sometime later. But it was kind of published by them. And this one, Star Wars, it's kind of like a Starship 1 type game, Wes, one of your favorites.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
On a computer, but it was more like, the graphics were so simple, it was more just like on a grid, and you kind of were just like tabbing over into the different cells, trying to chase something essentially, and then shoot it.
Right, okay.
So kind of like a turret game, but more of a grid-based thing. They did make it kind of look Star Wars-ish, which was cool, but I thought it was like kind of a nice, simple Star Wars game that made sense for that time. So that was in October.
And then next up, we have SAM, Surface-to-Air Missile, also by Robert Kopedge. And this one was in the November issue. Just sounds like sort of a turret shooting at planes kind of game. Something we've seen before and kind of what you'd expect. And then we have Bomber, which is an interesting one, also in that November issue by Robert Kopedge. It's sort of like a getting hot, getting cold type game where you have to find a bomb before it explodes. But it's all text and there's multiple floors in the play area. It almost sounds Hunt the Wumpusy, like it's telling you, oh, you're getting close to the bomb or far away, and you kind of have to navigate room to room to try and defuse it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one that we have for the Small Systems Journal retcon, and for all of our 77 retcons, is Shoot the Gluck, which I feel like I had to say it incredibly slowly or else I'd end up cursing on podcast just because it's a strange word. This one was from the December issue of Small Systems Journal, and it was by Gerald Owens. Just a simple shooting timing type game, but not like gun related.
Yeah. And that's it. Yeah, as Wes mentioned, for all of our research, we only had, 7 mistakes last year?
Not too
Pretty
bad.
good, I think. Yeah, it was a big year. I mean, come on. But yeah, let's get into actual 78 games. We're going to start with one by Key Games, which came out in January of 78. It's called Sprint 1. And I was really hyped to play this until I actually looked at what it was. So we're not going to play it. It's, you know how sometimes they have those racing games and they just make them for like smaller cabinets for whatever reason, or resell. I think that's what happened, because this is a one-player version of Sprint, but the previous Sprints that we've played, some of them were in color, some of them had new graphics. This doesn't have either of those. It's like the way old Sprint 2 graphics, which was in black and white, and this is in black and white, which is really weird. It seems to be exactly like Sprint 2 in just about every way except this one player. but it did, like, you picked your track at the beginning of a play session, but then the track would also change as you were playing and as you were driving, which we have seen before. I don't know if Key Games has done that before. I think they have, but it's weird that they would go back to it now, and I don't think it's like a feature I was looking for. So yeah, it felt like a sprint game that, even though it's in 78, it felt so old. We've just seen sprint games done better by them, so it was kind of not worth rating, I thought.
And then next up, we have a Japanese game, which I will probably butcher the pronunciation of, but I think it's Nyankoro by IPM/IRIM. Came out probably in January 78, not too sure, but it looks like it was a circus clone, which just talked about circus, so that has me excited. Yep. That used cats or cat-like people instead of the clowns, and instead of balloons, they were jumping up, and it was little like mouse heads that they were catching. But one notable thing about this from the sources that we found is that it might be the first game to actually have graphics of Japanese characters and symbols. We've seen a lot of Japanese arcade cabinets and games before, but none of them, as far as we know, actually had like the writing on the screen.
Yeah, they would have just been like on the cabinet art, you know?
Right, exactly. And then next up, that brings us to the one and only game that we're reviewing today, which is kind of a weird thing to say. And this is also a weird game to take a look at because it's a prototype game called Time Bomb by Atari. And we don't normally do prototypes, but this one is really cool. We have a good video of it, and we have a source saying like, hey, this exists. And there's only one cabinet, and this guy owns it. So we know it exists, and we know a good bit of information about it. So Time Bomb, it was worked on, probably a bunch of different people worked on it, but some names are Chris Downand, Lyle Rains, and John Ray. It's an unreleased Atari game, but it has full cabinet art of like these two cartoony guys riding like either like front end loaders or bulldozers, except instead of a plow in the front, it has a suction cup, and in the suction cup is a bomb, which is just all around crazy and awesome, and it's ridiculous, but exactly what I want out of some cabinet art. It controlled with a joystick to move the bulldozer around, and a button that you would click to grab the bomb instead of just pushing the bomb, which is really interesting. And also, of course, because this is a prototype, this one actually, one cabinet exists, like the one and only, as far as we know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually either modified from a Sprint 4 cabinet or just used all the hardware from Sprint 4, basically, from what we found. And that kind of makes sense because as I go into the sounds for this, I think a lot of them are pulled directly from that game or slightly modified.
Oh, weird.
So getting into the gameplay for this, it's one player versus AI or two-player game, at least intended. The version that we saw was one player versus AI. And you have to push ticking bombs that spawn in your zone on your side of the screen into the other player's zone, and if it blows up, you get a point. The bombs spawn in each player's base, so then you have to kind of push them out because if it blows up in your zone, then I think the opponent gets a point. I don't think you lose a point. And it looks like they might have variable fuse timers. I'm not too sure about that, but they were actually represented with a number that counts down on the little image of the bomb, and a fuse that actually gets shorter as time goes on, which is pretty cool. And the player bases have some walls with collision around them, and it's a timed game. Basically, whoever gets the most points wins. So going into my ratings for this, because we don't know tons and tons about the background information, the graphics, I gave it a 2 out of 10. It's all in black and white, and the player bases are just like rectangles with some spots cut out and tiny walls. But the bombs and the bulldozers look really good. The bombs actually look round, which is always good. I mean, not so much of a luxury anymore in arcade cabinets, but still nice to see. And they have this big long fuse coming up from the top of them that slowly disappears like chunk by chunk. And also they have a numbered counter on the bomb, which is really nice. And the bulldozers have treads that are very easy to see, and the head of like a character actually riding them. It looks like one character is sort of like a guy with a cowboy hat or a hard hat or something. And the other one is being driven by like a robot head, I think, because the score on that side of the screen just says robot and player. I'm not sure if that would have changed, so that just said like player one, player two in the final version of this game. But pretty cool that it actually just says robot up there for the score. And then the explosion, of course, which in a game about bombs blowing up is very important, also looks really good in this. It's just kind of like blinking squiggly lines in the center to look like smoke, and then sort of lines coming out from the side to make like a big cartoony boom kind of symbol. And it looks really good. And I'm really happy that the whole screen doesn't flash whenever a bomb blows up. It's just the, because I feel like we've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
Like you get crashed into something in Starship One, whole screen flashes. It's like, oh man, that's way too much. In this, though, just the inside of the player base, which is a rectangle on either side of the screen, flashes when a bomb blows up in it, which is still a lot, but it's just like a nice indicator of what happened, and it feels like just enough. And then for sounds, I give it a 2 out of 10. Honestly, I think the sounds are really good for what I was expecting from this game. I am pretty sure the engine sound is from Sprint, or at least very similar, as well as maybe the bomb exploding noise is like the big car crash in one of their games. But I could have just been hearing that because I read somewhere that it used Sprint for hardware. Either way, they're not super complex or different sounds from what we've heard, but they are pretty good. And also, there's a shorter crash sound for when you hit a wall, and there's a ticking noise for the bombs, which is really nice.
Nice.
Yeah, it's sort of this slow, pulsing click, but I mean, like, anytime you have a ticking noise for a bomb in a game that's about bombs, it really helps. I couldn't really tell if it was mechanical or not. It might have been generated by the game itself, but either way, it just lent good audio to it and really helped sell the atmosphere of the game. And then on to the gameplay, I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. I mean, in concept, it's very simple. You're just pushing these ticking time bombs into other people's bases. But it's a really unique and weird concept because you're driving this bulldozer and pushing bombs for who knows what reason. And since the bombs spawn in your base, I like that you can't just kind of sit around and play defense or sit around in the opponent's base and try to mess with them. You always have to be running back and forth or else it'll explode in your own base and they'll get a point. So it gives it this nice hectic feel. When you get some time after scoring, you can kind of block them from pushing bombs out of their own base if you want to use that tactic. And the fact that you can grab the bomb instead of just pushing it, which I saw the person playing it grab it from like their treads. So it seems like as long as it was touching the bulldozer in some way, you could pick it up. Kind of gives you more maneuverability. It's easier than just being able to push it with the front of your truck. So I thought that was really nice. And overall, I just like the frantic feel of the gameplay.
So how many like bombs are there like on the screen? Just 2 at any one time?
I think just 2. It might have gone up to 4 though. I'm trying to think if other ones spawned, for the same player. If one had already spawned on that screen, it could just be that it felt like there was a lot though, because it seems like whenever one blows up, one instantly spawns. And the timers are like staggered, I think. So it's not like each one is going off at the same time for both people. I think. Again, I don't remember too much, but it was enough that it really felt like there was a lot going on in it. And then so for relevance for this, it's a little bit weird to rate a prototype game that never actually came out for relevance.
Right.
So I think it's super cool and like from a historical standpoint, incredibly interesting that there's this one copy of this game, but I gave it a 2 out of 10 for relevance because it probably didn't impact many other games in video game history, maybe internally in Atari before they decided to pull it. So it's super awesome to see, but really not that relevant. And then overall, I gave it a 2 out of 10. I just feel like it does a lot of stuff right, which is really impressive for a game that never made it to full production. It feels a little bit behind in 78 with the black and white graphics and no overlay and fairly simple sounds, even though they're pretty good. But just everything together, I think, was a really good package and made for a good game. I would have loved to have seen more of this game, obviously, but I don't know anything about the market in 78. Maybe it didn't call for this type of game. I'm sure Atari had their reasons, but it looks really fun. And I think it's definitely worth checking out as like an artifact of history that has still survived somehow as this one cabinet that had the game on it.
Yeah, we should shout out where we got a lot of this info from. I think it's actually a like a book that some guy like spent years of his life writing and going and actually finding all this stuff. But the book is called "The Games That Weren't," and I believe the author is Scott Evans. So go check him out. Maybe pick up the book if this kind of thing interests you guys. But yeah, it's a cool one. I just noticed, by the way, that the treads are animated, which I wasn't expecting. It's like rewatching it.
Yeah, they actually, I mean, they're little dots around the circles for the treads, but they look very noticeably and believably like, treads on a bulldozer.
Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking of when you were talking about this, I was like, wait a minute, doesn't Fall Guys have a game mode exactly like this?
Does it have exploding things? It might not.
Well, not like the egg one where you
Yes.
it's kind of like hot potato and you take them to your base or whatever.
Yeah.
You want them in your base in that one instead of your opponents, but kind of similar. I was like, wait a minute.
I could see that.
Yeah, that was a cool one. All right, let's move on. We got like kind of a big group of honorable mentions here, and then we're gonna call it for the day. Let's start out with the last arcade one of the day. It's called Video Bowl by Elcon, and it seems to be a clone of either Robot Bowl from Exidy or maybe Meadows Lanes. But we only know it came out sometime in '78. And then we're going to move and hop right into first gen consoles. Man, Wes, they took a while. Not near as long as last year. There was, I want to say, about 1,000 first gen consoles last year. This year, it was more like 300-ish, maybe 350 actually, something along those lines.
Yeah, big drop.
Yeah, a massive drop, and some weird things happened too. So, first of all, I'm not going to go through all 350 right now. Obviously, some of them I did break up into other episodes that we're going to do later, and then when we talk about these chips, I'm just going to mention maybe some of the highlighted companies that made some. If you want to see the full list of the full 350 and all the chips that they had, it'll be up on the website and you can check that out. But let's start with the classic, Wes, the one and only, the 8500. Are people still making them in 78? Yeah. Yeah. To my surprise, though, not as many as I thought. They were by far and away the most common last year. I'd say maybe like half of all consoles were 8500s last year. And this is actually, it's still like a lot, considering that it plays 4 to 6 black and white Pong and light gun games in 78. But it wasn't near as many as I thought. It wasn't the most popular chip of the year, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, so a couple companies quick for them. Just the ones that I noticed: Hanimex, Princetronic, SEB, VideoMaster, which VideoMaster is one of the like original OGs. I don't know why they're making 8500 stuff. Audiosonic made 5 consoles that used the 8500 this year for some reason. Binatone and Coleco all made 8500 consoles, and some of them even made 8510s. Now, we haven't mentioned the 8510 chip before. It's brand new this year, but it just only has the original 4 Pong games, but in color, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me because, like, the 8515 was already around that had all 6 in color, so seems strange. But while we're on the topic of 8500s in color, there was also an 8512 console that came out this year called the Telstar Marksman by Coleco, which is again just another version of the 8500 in color. So that's another Coleco one that they're still, they made that hardware like 2 years ago or whatever. They're like, oh, we're still gonna do this.
Yikes.
Have a whole like crash of the market. They're like, well, let's keep going. But then I want to talk about real fast the actual most popular set of chips and consoles for the first gen stuff of this year of 1978, and it's actually going to be the PC50X line. Now, this pretty well surprised me because I Like there was quite a few last year, but I didn't think that they'd be more than like the 8500, and they were like probably double that. It was a lot of PC 50X consoles. I'm not sure if that's just because they're like blowing up in Europe right now or what the deal is, but just as a reminder, we did 4 of those games last year, and we're going to do the other 4 this year. So we're going to be definitely talking about the PC 50X this year, and it seems very popular. So I'm glad I kind of split them up like that. So, but just quickly, a couple of the notable manufacturers of PC 50X this year that stood out to me that had a lot of them, or were just bigger companies, were companies like Grandstand, Handymex again, Soundic, Sportsmaster, TCR, Audiosonic, Bandai, who's familiar to us, and Binatone. And then that leads me to my last group for me for the first gen consoles today. They're the unknown chips. And I want to say this list is pretty big, but I really wanted to kind of not, as much as I can, put my personal guesses in, because for a lot of these consoles, like we have pictures of and stuff, and I can see a console and see like, oh, it's got 10 games on it. It's probably an 8610, which has 10 games on it, right? But as much as I could, I tried to stop myself from doing that because I don't want to like invent history. If other people want to do that, that's fine. But I just kind of left them to be unknown for now. And if I saw 2 trusted sources say 2 different things, I just put it in unknown. So there's a lot of stuff here. It doesn't mean that I've got absolutely no clue, but it just means that there's a little bit more mystery to them than some of the other ones. And there wasn't anything that seemed completely unique that we would want to cover either. It's all stuff that we've already kind of seen. But the companies that had some stuff there were companies like Hobbytron, Marie Electronica, Scomark, Sears, Soundic, the Soviet Union, which we're going to talk about more later, Tokyo, Tommy, Acetronic, Ultronic, Coleco, and Tagasa. So some Spanish ones in there. And the Soviet Union, Wes, I can't wait to talk to you about that.
Oh man, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was like made like by, I guess, like the government. They're like, we need this Pong game.
Oh, that's hilarious. So then going through a couple more Gen 1 consoles and chips, we had the MM57100 and 105N chips, which was a National Semiconductor Adversary chip from 76. Still hanging around here. And the consoles for that were the Color TV Games TV1 by Electrosport and Teleflipper by Fanola. And then we have the MPS 7600-001, which was a Mostech 76 chip. The chips were from the Name of the Game console and also played the 8500 Pong games. And the console that we have for that is the Color Sport 8 CS 1818 by Granada. It's a very long title for a console. And then last up for the set of chips I'm taking a look at, we have the Video something like that, Video Hul. I think it's Argentinian by Laboratorio Electronico Hiroshima. I'm saying all of these wrong, I'm sorry. But it's a clone of the original Magnavox Odyssey in Argentina.
Weird. When did that come out? 6 years ago?
Yeah, very strange. But it is, I think, understandable that different countries might have been several years behind at that point in the 70s. So maybe that's what happened. Yeah. They were just like, oh, hey, this is still relevant in Argentina right now.
Yeah. And then just one more mention for you guys. This is the TMS 1965 and 65N chip from Texas Instruments. It's another one from 1976. And the 2 consoles we have for 78 for this chip are the video games VG2 by Polystill and the U-Video 501 and 502 by StarX. So I know that was a lot of consoles, a lot of chips we just mentioned. I want to reiterate that we've covered every single one of those chips in previous episodes. So if you guys want to learn more about them, find them on the website. You can track down what episode they're from and learn a little bit more about them. But yeah, I think every single one we just talked about, other than the PC50X, were stuff that came out in 76, 2 years ago, and they're still making stuff for it. So And I don't know how many consoles we covered there. It was probably over 200 consoles.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I'm hoping though every year I think it'll decrease dramatically the number of first gens. So I'm not too worried that we're gonna have to keep saying these chips forever. Even though it feels like that right now. But yeah, what do you think, Wes? They're still making 8500s. Who's buying that? Why did Audiosonic make 5 of them? These are the questions I have.
It's very strange to me, but you can rest assured that we're just going to put those in the honorable mentions unless they had anything new and cover the more exciting stuff in 78.
Yeah. So that's it for us today. It feels like a really short second half, but we did talk for a while in the first half, Wes. And I'm super excited. We got a lot of honorable mentions out of the way. And next week, we're going to really dive into some 78 games. And there are some great ones. I think in general, handhelds have like just taken off. We're going to probably see 4 times as many handhelds as last year. Computer games have taken off. The Holy Trinity has actually produced a whole wave of video games for us to play computer games. And obviously, the arcade stuff is still sticking around and going to be super useful. Atari is going to be killing it, I'm sure. So yeah, I cannot wait for a new year, Wes. Thank you, everybody, for listening and sticking with us. Wes, I want to thank you for helping with the research. You know, did way more than ever before. So thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. And as always, as we're going into 78, this new exciting time, make sure to check us out on Twitter for announcements about our episodes. Check out our website for more information on everything that we've covered before, and send us an email if you have any questions.
And with that, we'll see you in the next one.
See y'all next time.